Hello, Farai. Welcome back.
Hi,
Welcome
TJ.
back, everyone. So, last time we talked about why the importance of mentorship. Now we are going a step further into talking about initiating a mentorship relationship, right? So, how do we start? This is one of the hardest questions to ask, and I
Yeah.
feel like when we had the program the first time for Shasha Bridge, that was one of the questions that our mentees were asking, like, how do I start or how do I approach someone else, right? So we've talked about our personal leadership, our both personal and professional, right? So how Farai, like, where do we start? Where do we start? Like, you have identified the people that this one can be a potential right fit for me.
Hmm.
How do you start a relationship? Because that's the most important thing, the start.
I think if you take the concept of love in
Yeah.
general, when it comes to like shooting your shot,
Yeah,
right? You don't shoot your shot to someone that you are not deeply passionate about, right?
exactly. Yeah.
And you want to make sure that when you shoot your shot, you are very ready.
Exactly.
So you've done your background research, um, you have been following their journey, not stalking, but following their journey and getting to understand who they are, what
Yeah.
motivates them, what makes them tick. But you also have a vision for you and them for the future, right? You're not just going to go blindly, right? It has to be something where you're saying, I am committing to building a relationship with this person because I see us working together and going to the future that way.
Yes.
Because you don't, and many people do this way, they find a mentor and they just go to their DMs and they say, hi, full stop. Then they leave, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to be shooting your shot that way, rest assured it's going to be a failure,
Yeah,
right? You really need to come up with the right poetry, as I would want to say it, the
exactly.
right points and ideas that are going to entice this person to take you out on the first date.
Exactly.
And for me, I think there are three ways that I've seen work in the past. Number one, it's a straight up. You see the person, you understand what they're up to, you approach them politely because you're not guaranteed of that particular relationship or mentorship,
Yeah.
and you introduce yourself. So again, we go back to the idea of understanding your story because they're going to ask you, so who are you? What are you all about? What do you enjoy doing? So you need to be able to have awareness on who you are or what questions you're having at that point in your phase in your phase in life. And you introduce yourself and you say who you are, what drew you to that particular individual, and then you hope to continue talking, and that's how you initiate. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is you meet someone who has a relationship with the person that you want to shoot your shot, and
Yeah.
you have a mutual friend. What we call that is transfer of trust.
Yeah. And also
So
what we call referrals.
yes, you want referrals, right? So assume you're a guy or a girl, and you have your guy friend or your girlfriend who happens to know that other guy or that other girl, and you're like, please introduce me to your friend,
Yeah.
right? That also happened in the professional setting where someone, you already have like a connection, and that connection has you know access to a particular person that you're interested in. They can introduce you via email, but rest assured, the moment they introduce you, you've got to have everything ready,
Yeah.
right? And you've got to have credibility and trust. That person is going to
Exactly.
trust so that they're able to connect you to that particular person and initiate a conversation. So I had mentioned that there are three that I thought about. And I think the last one, which is a more longer term um, approach, which is not like very cold calling directly. I think it's gaining an interest in someone's work, right? So you follow their work, you follow their things with the goal that they approach you. So you are not approaching them. You understand what they're interested in, and then you create value for them. Either someone has written a paper, right? And you've read all their papers, you see loopholes, you come up with an argument, and then you comment it, and they're like, "Oh my god, I like what you're doing." Then that's how they bring you. You sort of like draw them to you, but that requires a magician to be able to do that. It's usually the hardest. You have to be very calculative and strategic to be able to do that. But people usually like it when you express interest in the work that they do.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like your lessons or your insights are very relevant. As you know, I'm in Silicon Valley,
Mm,
and besides Silicon Valley being the center of technology innovation, right? It's an ecosystem.
yes.
And one of the most important things in the ecosystem and what makes Silicon Valley so valuable is that it's because of relationship building, right? It's one
Mm-hmm.
of the easiest places where you can easily get a venture capitalist, a fellow entrepreneur who's working with stuff that you want to work on, right? So that's the core of the ecosystem, right? And one of the things that I hear to sharpen myself and that I've come to you for many times asking for help is how do we start that relationship, right?
Mm,
So I will share a personal story of what the skills that you have done, right? What you have said, and how I applied it to actually start a lesson.
yes.
Because some people will say like, well, they're just saying, but it didn't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I came to Silicon Valley, right? So Silicon Valley, in terms of like Zimbabweans, right? They are there, but like they are very few, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the career trajectory that I was on, and someone who inspired me was James Manika, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who is a Zimbabwean and senior partner at McKinsey and Company, right? So I was just so the first thing was like I wanted to know more about the person, right? So
Mm,
I looked at his work, I looked at each and every detail. That's called doing your homework, right?
yeah.
I've already mentioned. And then I did this, right? So there are some people also Zimbabweans seniors who were there before who knew James. I just talked to them, right? But I didn't talk to them because I wanted to have a referral and such, but I wanted to talk to them because I wanted to know James at a more personal level from their eyes and their experience with them, right? So that's the second thing I did. And then the last thing I did was that email, right? Or that first message, which most people talk about. So I just want to talk about what were the components of my message, right? The first thing was because you are sort of like shooting your sword on someone you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So what you have said, you have to establish your credibility, right?
Mm.
Why should I be talking to you, right?
Why are you worthy of my time?
Why are you worth your time? Because those people like they are so busy, most of
Mm-hmm.
them. Like, so the first thing I did was like so I did use LinkedIn, right? So what I did is that I make sure that I polished up my profile. That's what you talk about. We'll talk about this personal branding,
Mm.
right? And then I established my credibility, that I'm this person, I'm a Stanford, that's what I do, that's what I'm interested in about, right? So that was the first part, right? Establish your credibility, right?
Mm.
Because when you say that, okay, this person is worth giving time to, right? And then the next thing you follow up, why do you want to talk to them? Like, why did you send the message? Like,
Mm.
so now you have to, sort of like talk about them, praise their work, sort of like maybe, sort of like what you can so bring something, maybe a recent article they have done or a recent speech they've done, just bring something, or maybe an interesting fact about them, right?
Mm.
Just to praise them because those people sort of like that recognition is important because
Mm.
those people are driven, they're mission oriented, right? So they want sort of like recognition, like maybe not like public recognition, but just recognition that your work is impactful, right?
Yeah.
And then the third part is connection, right? Between your credibility and their credibility. Where do you meet?
Yeah.
Right? So that's why you now suggest like areas of synergies, right? Like for example, for me was like, I'm interested in management consulting, and I know that you're a senior partner in McKinsey, and I know that you're one of the very few Zimbabweans or Black people at the very top. I want to be there too, right? So I want you
It's
to
your
be
goal. Yeah.
it's the goal, right? And therefore gonna link to them, right? So they will relate to your goal because they want in your shoe, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, they also develop empathy in you that, okay, I was once there, so I need help them, right? And from
Wow.
that on, it worked. But she gave me his email, and now we've been talking. He has been one of my most important mentors in my life. So I feel like those things you have said, they actually work, right? So you have to be engaged now, and the components that I've highlighted, that I've applied or components that's in a real life situation that actually happened and that's actually worked, right? But again, the first thing is always about try,
Yeah.
because I think we have noticed
Yeah.
that.
It's not always gonna be successful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you never know, you're never going to be successful, but just try, just share that
Yeah.
message.
Have the courage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have the courage. So I think that is important. So I feel like just to wind up this video, I have a question, like from the experiences with the last cohort, the Shasha Bridge cohort, first cohort, right?
Yeah.
After going through this sort of like this mentorship and this initiation relationship, what was the experience and what was the outcome, just in general?
So when most of our fellows came in, they first of all they're trying to understand who they are and what do they even want to do. And our work was to pull all these interesting and inspiring young people, because we really try to make the content and the stories relevant to the stage, that these young people are. So we always vary the different ages of our guest speakers and our coffee chats. And it's through them connecting with other people and hearing stories that they actually develop the confidence to be able to say, look, I want to become a doctor. Maybe before I decide to sign up for medical school, let me reach out to a doctor who either I've connected to through my dad or through my school and ask them about their experience. Then I can have full information, or I can say, look, I'm still asking these questions about myself. I recognize you've been doing this work. Can I come do a job shadowing for a weekend and volunteer? I just want to observe you at work so that I can have a feel. And you'll be surprised that people in positions like that are more than happy to say, okay, please do come along, and they'll give you information. And we've seen most of our scholars take that particular route and then come back and be like, oh my god, I decided to take up music, or I decided to apply to this particular college, and this is how I ended up doing my internship, and it has worked for them. So the outcome was very specific to different people, but the foundation was getting them to appreciate and know that what they are interested about matters, and they should have the courage to reach out to people with what is core to who they are. That way you build more solid relationships with
Exactly.
the
I feel like it's
adults.
about the best. I think
Yeah.
the best is what is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like in this video we established how to start a relationship by looking at the general concepts, and we have given a specific example of how it worked, and also we talked about how we as such a bridge help our scholars to in this process, right? So
Yes.
thank you so much, Farai, for joining. And the next thing episode we're going to talk about how to nurture that relationship,
Yeah.
because starting is one thing, nurturing it is another story. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.